What's up, taters? This is Tree from treeoflogic.com. So I want to talk about this bill that's right now in the Texas House of Representative, and because there's a chance this could be a law. And we all know, like other states, that when a bill is signed into law, other states usually follow suit. I think the most recent example is the heartbeat bill, showing that if a woman is 6 weeks pregnant or more, she cannot get an abortion in certain southern states. We have that here in Georgia. So if even if she's at 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and if the doctor can hear a heartbeat, she's not eligible to get an abortion. So I have a funny feeling that if this is passed in the House, it's going to get signed by Governor Abbott, and then other states are going to follow along. And are we going to listen to the crying and moaning from the men's? Anyway, I also did some deep diving into this. So let's get right into it, because I want to educate you all about some questions that I was asking yesterday. I have the answers now. So let's read this article. Then we're going to look at this video that goes into more detail. Fathers could be ordered to pay retroactive child support from the moment of conception under a bill that passed the Texas Senate this week. How does the child support currently work? The backstory: currently in Texas, child support doesn't take effect until the child is born. Retroactive child support is typically limited to 4 years back from the time of filing, unless there is evidence the man knew or should have known he was the father and tried to avoid supporting the child. What is SB 942? Under Texas SB 942, a judge could order retroactive child support payments beginning on the date of conception instead of birth. Yes. Yeah. I'm here for this, okay? The father would be responsible for a share of reasonable and necessary prenatal and postnatal health care expenses. Paternity would have to be established. Now, this is what I was asking yesterday. I was like, how do you protect the men that are falsely accused of fathering a baby, okay? And the baby turns out not to be his after a DNA, not the DNA, a paternity test is given. So it looks like that has been addressed. I'm going to go to the video where they're going to talk about that. It looks like they're going to probably put that in the escrow. And I went to Google because I wanted to know, how soon can a pregnant woman determine, who is the father? When can a paternity test be given? And of course, the answer I got is in as early as the end of the first trimester. I'm assuming, and if I'm wrong, any woman who's pregnant or this answer, please sound off in the comment section. I do believe that around the 4th or the 5th week of the pregnancy, a paternity test can be given. Or I think it's around that. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments below, okay? So as I said earlier, paternity would have to be established. The date of conception would be determined by a doctor or through other evidence, such as a parent's testimony. So let's look at this video of one of the senators who is asked a lot of questions by someone from the local Fox News. It's very educational. He does cover a lot of ground here, and we're going to watch this video and then we'll move on to another video that also touches on some topics that were not addressed.
Currently, child support cannot be ordered by a court until a baby's born, and then you can file a suit affecting the parent-child relationship and get child support ordered, but only after the baby's born.
So how would the law change if this measure becomes the law?
So what this law does is attach parental responsibility all the way back to conception. Now, what I don't know how they're going to do this is attach how they're going to attach the fatherhood when they don't have the ability to do that until the baby's born. But they're going to force the father to pay child support back to the date of conception. And what it does is it forces fathers to pay for the medical care that the mother needs and things like that. It's not a bad idea, but at the same time, what the legislature ought to also do is equalize child support. What we only do right now is look at one half of the equation. In other words, we look at the mother's income when basing how much the father has to pay in child support, or conversely, we look at the father's income when we look at how much the mother has to pay. We ought to be looking at both sides of the equation in deciding how much child support is going to be paid.
So, ladies, this actually holds you accountable somewhat, because if you open your legs to a Dusty and he is barely working or probably work part-time at McDonald's, and you're the one who's a lawyer, you're the one who's a doctor, you're the one who's a computer engineer, you making six figures. Okay, your Dusty future baby daddy is going to be paying $10 or $20 a month. Like, for shame. Keep your legs closed to these men who are not at your level or greater. Like, come on now. And by the way, this also teaches men to have dingling discipline. So I don't want to hear no more, she making me pay child support. Imagine being so broke that you are complaining about taking care of your child. All right. You're supposed to be the leader. So why don't you take lead over your dingling and stop skeeting in women that you don't want to reproduce with?
Okay, Chris, let's look at the big picture here. Because if you're paying child support for a child that hasn't been born, is government essentially recognizing conception as a human being, and not just a pre-fetus or fetus?
Well, we've already done that. And unless and until the law changes, well, we've already done that when we overturned Roe versus Wade, and we allowed the states to decide when that occurs. And every state, or most states, have now done that. And in Texas now, that's what the law is. And so as long as that's the law, then this legislature can now decide when you're going to have to pay child support. And unless and until Roe versus Wade becomes the law again, or something else becomes the law, each state is allowed to decide how they're going to regulate things like child support, or if and when and how someone can terminate a pregnancy.
Chris, I mean, I'm just seeing the practicality here. If you cannot establish paternity, or paternity is in question, would you think that the child support would be retroactive once paternity is established?
And that may be what this ends up being, is a retroactive payment at the end. And that may be the easier way to do it. But then you've got a huge bill that someone may not be able to pay. There's a lot of issues here that are going to have to be fleshed out, I assume, after this bill becomes law and someone files the first lawsuit, is where this is going to get all fleshed out.
From the perspective of an attorney, if a client came to you and said, hey, look, a young woman says I fathered her child and wants me to start paying child support, what would your advice be?
Well, from a practical standpoint, I think that every father ought to be supporting their children, and I think we all agree with that. Now,
not the Pookies, not the Dusties, the Asbestos, the men who want to blame women and because they're the ones who skeeted up in her. Like I said, it's women hold responsibility too, but not really if the men are the ones who are banging on their chest saying that they're the leader. So if you're the leader, and that's what you keep telling us, then it's mostly your fault, because the woman is following your lead.
The question then becomes, at what level, at what point can the law say we have to start supporting? And at what point can we say we can prove that you're the person that owes this money, this support? That's where we've been grappling with now for a very, very long time. And the Texas legislature is going to push that right now into a new round of litigation that is probably going to make it to the highest levels of the court system. And so if someone came to me, I would say, if you've got the wherewithal, you can fight this all the way to the top.
Wow.
Chris, this may sound like a simple question, but can courts order paternity tests?
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. Courts have been ordering paternity.
How does he not know that? Oh, well, that's because he probably didn't have to. He probably never needed it. Big W for the interviewer, okay? The journalist, okay? Good man, good man. Never had to get a paternity test from any woman because he's a responsible leader.
Test as long as paternity tests have been around. And that's a well-settled question.
Yeah,
that a court can order a paternity test to determine if someone is the father of a child. Yeah. There's no question about that.
None.
And just out of curiosity, because you actually make like $400 an hour and I'm burning that time or more.
Yeah, more.
If a mother asks for support from a partner and it's later determined that that partner is not the parent, would she be liable for reimbursing?
That's a very good question, and I don't know the answer to that, because the question becomes who screwed it up. In my view, a young lady says, Chris is the father of my child, and the paternity test confirms that, and then you later find out that the paternity test was wrong. Well, does the young lady owe the money, or does the doctor?
The doctor. If she said that Chris is the father, the paternity test was like, Maury, yes, you are the father. And if he gets a second opinion from another clinic or hospital or whatever, and comes to find out that the child is not his, then I think the doctor should pay. As a matter of fact, I know the doctor should pay because they gave the false results. So they're the ones that the problem to all of this. Yeah, sure, she could have like sincerely thought that he was the father, or maybe she didn't think that he was the father. She was lying on Chris. Either way, the paternity test would have set the record straight, and there's no payment until the results of the paternity test is revealed. And if you give a false paternity test, then it's on you, and that would be the doctor, not the woman.
It seemed, in my view, the doctor would owe that money, and the doctor's the one that has the money.
Yes.
And that's where I would be looking if I was the lawyer.
But, just as a viewer, out of an abundance of caution and doing the right thing, I decide to pay a young lady who's actually who the child was fathered by somebody else. Would I have an actionable claim? Say, hey, you need to reimburse me, either you or him.
You certainly could claim that the young lady owes the money back, but 99 times out of 100, she doesn't have any money. The doctor who screwed up the test does.
So here's another video clip from the local news network in Texas, and this adds more detail to it. So let's watch that now. And after that, I will give you my thoughts towards the end, and then we will have a nice discussion in the comments section.
Senate Bill 942 could change when you pay child support, and it could be sooner than you think. The bill requires a child's father to pay retroactive child support starting from the baby's conception date. It's a controversial topic that father and business owner Michael Ball feels passionate about.
I feel like she's carrying the baby. He's responsible for the baby. Doctor's appointments, all that comes into play. Both parties should be held accountable to bring that child into the world.
Members of the Texas Senate passed the bill on Wednesday with a vote of 27-4. This bill is making sure both parents play a role in supporting the child before birth and covering medical care expenses, which can be expensive. Attorney Anthony Robles at Robles Family Law Firm has been practicing law for 18 years and deals with child support cases daily. He says child support is a lifeline that parents need to take care of their children.
The obligation to support a kid doesn't start when the baby's born. The mother incurs extra expenses when she's bearing your child, when she's creating your child. It's going to help you in multiple other ways. One, the amount you'll owe for back child support, it's going to be less because you've already paid some of it. Two, you're probably going to have a better relationship with the other parent.
But it's a system.
Okay, a lot of these men who lack dingling discipline don't want to have a good relationship with the mother. A lot of these men do not have leadership skills. And if you can't control your urges to avoid skeeting inside a woman, regardless if she says she's on the pill or not, then you have to suffer the consequences of what come from that. Just that is just plain and simple.
Really fair?
With child support, at least in the state of Texas, is it only looks at one parent's income. It looks at the income of the parent who's going to be paying child support. and the resources that parent should provide for the kid. It does not take into account the resources that the person who's going to have custody has the child.
The bill will now move forward to the House. Reporting in Odessa, Sanji Milburn, News West.
Okay, well, there's that. This was also a very good article. I'm not going to play the video here because it's 10 minutes long, but it's very good. It's a very good exchange between the senators on the Senate floor. I think if you're interested in this, especially if you live in Texas, you're going to want to tune into this video. But I'll leave a link to this in the description box as well as the pinned comment. So here are my final thoughts on this. Men are constantly telling us that they are leaders, especially these broken down, busted red pill men. Well, if you are indeed the leaders, then you should take charge and be able to control your ejaculate that comes out your ding ding. Okay. If you don't want to reproduce with the woman you're on top of or you're humping, then don't skeet inside of her. How hard is that? And the only reason it's hard for some men is because they lack the discipline down there, what I call lack of dingling discipline. If you don't have that type of discipline, then you are not a leader. But if you say you are the leader and you get her pregnant, then I'm going to say she gets a pass because she's following your lead. If you're the leader, you cannot put the blame on her because she's following your lead. But if you admit that you're incapable of leading, that you're not a leader, you don't have any leadership skills, then the blame is on her. And she shouldn't have opened her legs to a dusty like you in the first place. But I know that a lot of men are going to start tripping out when they hear this. Ooh, woo, I'm here for it. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, you men need to take the leadership role and stop skeeting in women you don't want to have babies by. And if you're not capable of doing that, then stop telling us you're the leader, because it's clear to me that you're incapable of doing that. There are some men that are leaders. There are some men who have excellent dingling discipline, but there are many who don't. And those men need to come to a realization that they're not in a position to be a leader. So let me know what you think about this by leaving a comment below this video. I really want to hear what you have to say. Don't forget to give this video a like. And if you're new to my channel, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Later, taters.